Hello, my name is Aaron with Water Sprite. I am here today to do a comparison video of our product, the Water Sprite blanket, with some of the market competitors so that you get an option to see how good the absorbent blanket market is. Currently, we are the only one on the market that's offering an absorption layer in addition to waterproof protection. So you'll see that all of these do offer waterproof protection. That's the main thread for all of these blankets. So over here we have the common medical incontinence pad, and you can see they did not worry about appearance at all with this pad, but it is functional. It's very thin, it looks like a medical pad. Next we have some of the competition. This is the Liberator blanket, which looks nice, and the satin does feel nice, but it's not connected in any way, so it completely pulls apart. And if you move it, you'll hear that it sounds like a tarp. I'm going to do a water test here in just a minute. This is a basic fleece blanket, which the fleece has some natural absorption in it. It does have a waterproof layer, but it does not have any additional absorption. And you'll see that in the water test. So this is a good kind of mid-range, just basic protection blanket. So if you need something a little bit more low cost, these are currently running between $80 and $120. This one was over $120 when we purchased it. The medical blankets, the medical incontinence pads, you can get for around $60. Our blanket is selling MSRP for $130. We are running a promotion right now on our website for our launch. So if you get in early, join our mailing list and you'll get those discount codes. Okay, let's do a water test. So I am going to start with a measuring cup, and I'm going to just start with, let's do 1/4 of a cup, and we'll go from there and see how they do with this much liquid. Okay, and we'll do that much for each of them, and then we'll add to it and see how they do. Now I am going to apply pressure with my hand because these are made for you to, you're either going to be sitting on them or lying on them, so I'm going to use my hand to simulate some pressure. So, okay, hopefully you can see this. Do you want to zoom for me? Here we go. Here's the medical incontinence pad. This is the one that's made specifically for this, for medical purposes. Okay, so it's still pretty wet, slowly soaking in. It didn't run off, so that's a good thing. You can hear that it's still pretty wet right there, but if I pick it up, it's not running off. So I'll do that for each of them to see, you can compare if there's any runoff. But the surface is still pretty wet. This top cotton layer on the medical pad holds onto all the liquid at the surface. Okay, here's this next one. Let's do 1/4 of a cup. And you'll see, I'm going to hold that up for 1/4 on each of these so you can see how much I'm doing. Here's 1/4. Can you zoom in on that? Okay, and that is not absorbing at all. It's completely just sitting on the surface. If I move the blanket, you can see it's starting to run off in pools. If I pick this up, it's all just going to run off onto the floor. You can see how that just ran down the whole length of the blanket off onto the floor because it's not absorbing any of it. Okay, let's try this one. I really should be giving these a rating. So the medical pad, that's functional, but the surface is really wet. The Liberator, no absorption whatsoever. So I mean, it's soft, but it sounds and feels like a tarp. Let's try just the fleece blanket with the waterproof protection. Again, here we got 1/4 of a cup. Oh, we got some runnage. Okay, it's starting to absorb a little bit. And as you can see, it is holding on to that. So this one can handle 1/4 of a cup. Okay, the surface is still pretty wet. I can still tap it and the water comes back up to the surface because there's no absorption layer. It's just what the fleece can naturally hold on to. So let's see how that compares with our blanket. So here again we've got 1/4 of a cup. And this is the Water Sprite blanket. Here we go. It's moving in. As you can see, no runnage, no leakage. It's all staying in the same spot. So that's the difference between, you can see even with the 1/4 of a cup that this one did not run, it stayed in place, and this one did have a little bit of runnage. But I would say that this one actually came in second. Well, this one and the medical incontinence pad, because the surface is still really wet on both of those, that these have about equal functionality. This one just failed. Failed that test. This one, once it soaks through to the absorption layer, it really starts pulling the moisture through, so the surface doesn't stay as wet. Now with 1/4 of a cup in that small of an area, the surface is still wet, but it does start to pull through to the absorption layer the longer it sits. Okay, so I'm going to shift these down. So that's test number 1. I'm going to shift these down and let's do a larger amount of liquid and see how it performs. This one failed, but just for fun, we'll do it again and see how it can handle it. This medical pad is pretty small, so I'm going to have to shift it a little bit sideways. So let's try, how much should we do for test number 2? Let's do 1/2 cup and just see how it does. And I might have to do a slightly larger area to get that much absorption. Okay, so here's 1/2 cup, and this will be our next test, so this is also 4 ounces. Okay, so let's start with the medical pad. Okay, we've got a pretty sizable puddle. Gonna let that kind of, you can see it dripped off into this one a little bit. But the medical pad is holding it. It's not dripping off, so it grabbed it. So yeah, I would say that's good. The surface is still really wet. You wouldn't want to stay lying on that. I'm guessing that'd be uncomfortable. So let's see. I'm going to spread this one out a little bit because I know it's going to make a puddle. But let's just see what 1/2 cup does to the Liberator. Okay. So here's 1/2 cup. I'm going to press down on it, but there's no absorption layer on this one, so I don't know that it makes a difference. And you can see that that is just a pool. Can you see that sloshing around? So that's gonna just completely, if you pick this up, yep, all off onto the floor. So you would not want to pick this up, you'd have to come back and clean that up with a towel, which defeats the purpose. Okay. So, no surprise there, with more water it still failed. Okay, now let's try the Throes of Passion or the fleece blanket. This is sold under many different brands because this is right off the shelf. Oh, whoops. Well, it is meant to clean up those surprise spills. Let's get to 1/2 cup here. Okay, 1/2 cup. Make sure I have a dry bit so I have a clean test. Okay, so here we go. This is the fleece blanket with the waterproof protection but no absorption. Well, no extra absorption. Okay, and with 1/2 cup, you can see it's just sitting there between my fingers. It's oversaturated. I can kind of move it around a little bit, make a bigger puddle. The surface is still pretty wet. You can hear that slapping, but it did absorb. So, I mean, that did take a half a cup. Pretty wet, still pretty similar performance to the medical pad. And as you can see, none of that is dripping off. So let's try that with our blanket and see how that compares. Because the surface is still really wet. If you tap it or if you laid on that, it would splash out. And if you zoom in on this, if I lay on it, it comes right back out. Okay, let's see how our blanket does compared to that. So let's get a half a cup. See if I can avoid spilling this time. Okay, so half a cup. Okay. So absorbed right in. I did have to move it around a little bit. Half a cup's a lot for a small area, but it absorbed really quickly. It is moving through to the absorption layer. So if I pick it up, I'm not really getting it coming back up like I am with this blanket, where it just squeezes out. This one, I can tell that it's wet, but it's not really coming back up to the surface. And of course, if I pick it up, no drippage or leakage whatsoever. So there you have it. The medical pad is functional, but it's ugly and it looks like a medical pad and it'll wear out fairly quickly. The Liberator, it looks nice in the catalog. In real life, it's a fail. I would definitely pass. The fleece blanket with the waterproof protection and no absorption, it does absorb, and as you can see, it is functional. So for the colors are pretty limited. You're gonna get this, I feel the colors are kind of juvenile. We do have, so with ours, you're gonna get the additional absorption layer. We do have a more mature color scheme with the blue and black on ours, which I like. Now remember, on ours you want to do the blue side up to take advantage of that absorption layer. And again, I am Aaron with Water Sprite Blankets, and thank you very much.